Okay, I've had my website for all of 5 months now, not very long, but I have accrued a few opinions on the pros and cons of having one. And considering I don't make many videos these days where I don't at some point say,
You need to have your own website.
only seems fair to balance that out with some pros and cons, because there are cons to it as well. So let's jump into that. All right, well, pro number one has to be there's no competition on your site. And if you sell on Etsy, for example, like many of us handmade sellers do, there's a freedom to that feels... On Etsy, you've not only got to compete against everyone else on the search page, but even once somebody has clicked on your item, there's more people there. And it just makes it really difficult, because not only have you got to try and grab people's attention on the search page so that people click on your item, you've got to try and hold their attention when they're on your specific items, that they don't get distracted and go off somewhere else, which happens frequently. So it's really tense, and it adds a layer of pressure that, frankly, we don't need. Small business owners have a lot going on without that. So it has to be my first pro for having a website, is that it's your space and you just have the space and the freedom to breathe. And once someone is there, they are there for you, or they're there for your products, but they are only going to get you and your products. No one else is going to be there going, hi, come to my thing instead. So yeah, it definitely wins over places like Etsy with that. Pro number two, there is far more scope for customization and branding of your site. Again, Etsy, eBay, wherever you are selling, you are limited to that platform and the tools that they offer you. Now, to be fair to Etsy, I think what they offer you is pretty good. You don't really need too many bells and whistles, but they lose points on the fact that they're constantly trying to take away shop identity. With places like Etsy, because of all of that, sometimes you have to put a lot more of your branding into your photographs. And I love the fact that with my website, the branding can be on the website, and I can make the photographs more about the item and less about worrying, is my shop name in there somewhere, or what have you. Now, the third one for me, and this is a huge one, and I'm not going to lie, it's probably the biggest one that made me want to move over to a website. I take away more profit from the sales that I make on a website than I do with Etsy. Now, the way that you pay for the fees are very different on both. With Etsy, as you all know, it's very, very little. When you list an item, it's just 20 cents, but that's all you pay until you sell an item. So it's low investment, low risk, but once you sell a thing, all of a sudden, there's lots of miscellaneous fees. Anyway, I digress. With a website, however, it's a monthly fee or an annual fee if you pay that way, but it's fixed. That's the drawback of that. I'll get back to that in a minute, but my point is that even though you're paying a fixed monthly fee, or I currently am, even so, at the end of the month, when I total up my revenue and I work out my profit, I have taken home more than I would have done if I'd sold the exact same things on Etsy. Number four is linked to the freedom that I mentioned previously, and that's not having to worry about random tests and experiments and tinkering messing with your sales. The Etsy is a bugger for this. They like to tinker with everything all the time. With your own website, you are free of this. If there are any changes to the website, the platform, the templates, anything like that, that is, at least with Shopify, which is what I use, it's clearly communicated. And then the last pro, and it's a big one for having your own website, is, well, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, the freedom, the peace of mind. And it goes further than just making you feel more relaxed and calm, or me anyway. With my website, once I'd gone through all of the hassle of getting up and running, every time I go into it now and I work on it, it feels like I'm moving it a little bit further forward. I'm moving the needle forward. That's the metaphor I was looking for. Whereas with Etsy, it constantly feels like the goalposts are moving. For example, they might bring in a change. I might adjust the sales to adapt to that change, and then weeks, months later, they will bring in another change that will rubbish the previous change. There's lots of adapting and lots of changing. And sometimes it feels that instead of constantly moving the needle forward, you're moving it forward, it's getting pushed back, and then you're moving it forward and it's getting pushed back again. And sometimes it feels like those pushbacks are more frequent than you're able to move it forward. Whereas the feeling with my website is that even if I'm only just working as and when I can, I just feel like the needle is constantly and consistently going forward. There's nothing pushing me back. Like I said, freedom, calm, peace of mind. These sound like wishy-washy things that aren't worth investing in, but I can tell you my business has grown and gotten stronger since I got a website. And I do think a big part of that has been this element, this not constantly running around chasing my tail, putting out fires, trying to chase the bloody goalposts because Etsy's tinkered again. Okay, obviously this is all biased, this is all my own personal opinion, these are not facts, and some people will find different pros and different cons with owning a website. So don't take my word as being the word, this is just my opinion, but I stand by all of those pros personally. And personally, these are my cons. Now there's only 3 of them. The first one though is a big one, and that is the cost. As I said previously, I'm paying a monthly fee. You can save a bit of money by doing it annually, but then you need all of that money all up front. When I started with Shopify earlier in the year, it was £20 a month and it's increased to 25. So if you're a small business, it's a chunk of money and it's an investment that not everybody will be ready for. So this is the way I did it. It might work for you, it might not. So again, don't take this as set in stone. This is just what worked for me. Because I generated the majority of my traffic and my sales, I knew that the amount of money that I was spending on fees on Etsy wouldn't be doubled up by getting a website so much as just transferring it. That won't be the case for everyone, but I was confident that would be the case for me, and it was. So I went through my monthly statements on Etsy, going back, I can't remember how far I went back, at least 6 months. And I wanted to see if I was paying more in Etsy fees than I would spend on a monthly reoccurring subscription to Shopify. And it was. I was spending way more. And I thought, well, if I put that same effort into my website that I'm currently doing with Etsy, then I will save money. And I have. Now, I should point out, I didn't get many organic sales on my Etsy shop. They were all being generated by myself. So I just transferred the energy, and so the sales pretty much moved from Etsy to my website. If you're getting a vast amount of organic sales without having to do anything, then what will probably happen if you got a website is that the fees would double up. You would still be paying Etsy fees and you'd have to pay a monthly fee. So you've got to think about how your business is working and how you get your sales and how much of it you're generating compared to it being organic, if that makes sense. It's not going to be the same for everyone. If you're not quite at that point where you can afford that, a website might not necessarily be the right move. Another reason why it might not be the right move, and I don't think a lot of people touch on this, not everybody wants to have a website or a shop as their full income. They're not looking to do a full-time self-employed business. Some people are just looking to supplement their income. So you might be happy with Etsy or eBay or whatever platform that you use, and you don't necessarily want to do all of the work and invest in a website. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, everybody's business is different and you will want it to do different things for you. So yeah, website is not for everyone. But if you are hoping to build up your business and scale it up, then you are going to want to at least look into it. So that's the first con. Second con, I can't repeat what I've written here because I swore. It's a to set up. It's a challenge. And I've written time and learning a new skill set. Well, obviously you don't have to do everything yourself. If you have the budget, you can invest in someone to build your website for you. And I must admit, if I had the money, I probably would have gone down that route. The benefit to doing it yourself though, even if you haven't got a clue, is that you learn very blimmin' quickly. Once you have got the basics set up, it is so much easier from that point on. Setting up my website was a pain in the neck because I didn't know how to do most of it and I had to learn that as I went along. So the whole process was just long. But if you're going to give yourself a few months to do it and you're going to chip away at it and see it as a project instead of a one task like I did, that was probably my biggest mistake. You're actually probably not going to find it nearly as painful as I did. So please don't let me put you off. The knowledge that I have about starting up a website that I didn't have at the start of this year is so good. And it does mean that if anything goes wrong, I'm less likely to need to outsource help, which can be expensive and a bit more time consuming. I'm more likely to be able to fix the problem myself. All right, let's get on to the last con. Well, I almost didn't include this because, to be honest, this is also applicable to Etsy, or at least it was in my case anyway. You have to drive your own traffic, all of it, to your website until Google can start to pick you up, which can take time. If you are already having to drive most of your traffic to Etsy, like I was, this is not going to be a con because you're already used to it and you're just transferring your efforts from this place to this place. If you get most of your sales on somewhere like Etsy because you have an ad budget, or if you don't have much of a community around your business or an audience yet, this one might be trickier. But I would argue that there is a lot of that with any platform that you have, not just a website. And if you are going to be spending a chunk of your time driving your own traffic and generating your own sales essentially on a third-party platform, would it not be better to spend that time on something that is more your land than someone else? But I thought it might be useful to come up here and tell you what I think are the pros and cons to having a website, as I have personally experienced them over the past 5 months. Like I said, these are just my personal pros and cons to having a website, but I would be really interested to hear your own. If you've got anything different, if you disagree with any of the things that I've said, or even if you've got anything new that I may have forgotten about, let me know all about it. In fact, actually, please let me know all about it, because I'm still in the process of learning. And if you have any tips or feedback to give me that might help me keep on moving the needle forward, then I'd be very grateful. And until next time, I'll see you later.